Hello everyone, my name is Michael Tuazon. I'm a massage therapy student at ERP College, and today we're going to talk about the extensor and flexor muscle group. I'm going to show you how to palpate these muscles, and by doing so, we're going to tell you as well the insertion, origin, and action of the muscle. Okay, so I have here a picture of the muscle group that we're talking about today. This is um, the extensor muscle group. We have the brachioradialis, red one, the extensor carpi radialis, longus and brevis, that'll be the blue colored ones, extensor digitorum, the yellow one, extensor digit minimi, green colored, and anconius, that orange colored muscle in the picture. Alright, so with the help of our volunteer, we're going to show you how to palpate the muscles. Okay, as we palpate the extensors and flexors of the wrist, one thing we want to keep in mind, all of the flexors are found on the anterior side of the arm when in a correct anatomical position. That we can say is the non-hairy side of the arm. The extensors are going to be found on the posterior side of the arm. That's the hairy side. Another important tool that we can use to find flexors versus extensors is to have our client contract a muscle called brachioradialis. We sometimes call this the divider muscle. Alright, so to palpate the brachioradialis, we're going to support the elbow, the client, and we'll have them to make a fist and push up to our hand. And as they push, you will see this muscle pop up. Okay, so this is the brachioradialis. It runs down all the way to the styloid process of the radius. If we are palpating lateral to the brachioradialis, we are on the extensor group of muscles. If we are palpating towards the medial side of the brachioradialis, this is the medial side of brachioradialis, we are on the extensor group muscles. Okay, so let's begin by palpating the extensors first. The first extensor muscle we are going to palpate is actually two muscles, but we are going to palpate as one. The carpi oh. So now we will palpate the extensor carpi radialis longus and carpi radialis brevis. Okay, so the carpi radialis longus originates from the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus, and brevis will originate from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. Okay, the carpi radialis longus will run down to the forearm and it will insert to the second metacarpal bone. And so these two muscles will run down to the forearm and they're going to cross the wrist. Longus will insert into the base of the second metacarpal bone, while brevis will insert onto the base of the third metacarpal bone. Alright, so as we palpate the carpi radialis longus and brevis, we're going to start at the lateral side of the humerus and we're going to go down the arm. We're going to get our client to do abduction and adduction movements, so to contract this muscle, the carpi radialis longus and brevis. So as she do abduction. Can you do abduction? I can feel the muscle contract. So we're going to follow that muscle. Again, carpi radialis longus originated at the lateral supracondylar ridge of the humerus, and the brevis at the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. So we're just going to follow that muscle. If at one point you think that you lose it or you're not on it, you're not sure, you can ask them to do the action of the muscle so it will contract and you can follow it. So it's going to cross the wrist, and you can differentiate longus from brevis because longus will you can feel it here at the second metacarpal bone, and brevis will be on the third metacarpal bone. The next muscle we're going to talk about is the extensor digitorum. So the extensor digitorum originates from the lateral side of the humerus. And a good thing to remember to show this muscle is ask your client to wiggle their fingers as if playing the piano, and you'll see that muscle contracts. You see that? Okay, so we're gonna ask our volunteer to do it, and I can see that muscle is contracting. That's the extensor digitorum, originating from the medial epicondyle and crossing the wrist, and it will attach to the medial and distal phalanges of uh, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so we're gonna start palpating from the medial epicondyle of the humerus and follow the muscle. It will cross the wrist and it will insert to the medial and distal phalanges of 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, so now we're going to palpate the extensor carpi ulnaris, the origin being the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, and the insertion will be the base of metacarpal bone number 5. Okay, so to palpate, we're going to start at the lateral epicondyle of humerus, and we're going to follow that muscle down the arm, crossing the wrist, and inserting at the base of metacarpal bone number 5. The action for this is hand extension and adduction. Okay, as a recap, your extensor muscle group will start with the carpi radialis longus and brevis. So from the lateral side of the humerus, going down the forearm, longus will insert on the second metacarpal bone, brevis on the third. And the next is extensor digitorum, um, lateral epicondyle of the humerus, down the forearm to the base of the fifth metacarpal. Oh, sorry. Post. And to recap, extensor digitorum, originating from the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, running down the forearm, going to your digits 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the extensor carpi ulnaris, um, lateral epicondyle of the humerus, down the forearm, crossing the wrist, and inserting to the base of the wrist of the fifth metacarpal bone. Those are our extensor muscle group. And we will go to now to the flexors of flexor muscles. Let's now proceed with the flexor muscle group. The first muscle we're going to palpate is the flexor carpi radialis. Flexor carpi radialis, as you can see in the picture, this is the anterior side of the left arm. All our flexor muscles are on the anterior side. Okay, so the flexor carpi radialis originates from the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Medial epicondyle of the humerus, inserting to the bases of metacarpal bones 2 and 3. And the action will be wrist flexion and abduction. Next, we have the pronator teres. The origin of the pronator teres is the medial supracondylar ridge of the humerus and the coronoid process of the ulna. And the insertion will be at the lateral surface of the radius. So you'll feel the muscle going here, and the action will be pronation of the forearm at the proximal radioulnar joint and flexion of the forearm at the elbow joint. So you see, this muscle crosses this joint, so it can flex at that joint, at the elbow joint. Next, we have the palmaris longus. So palmaris longus, the origin is the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and it runs down the arm, crossing the wrist, and then inserting to the palmar fascia or palmar aponeurosis. To palpate palmaris longus, we will ask the client to touch their thumb and their fifth digit, and palmaris longus will pop up and it'll be easier to palpate. So it's easier to palpate from, if you can feel it here, up to where it originates, the medial epicondyle of the humerus. And the last flexor we're going to talk about is the flexor carpi ulnaris. Flexor carpi ulnaris originates from the medial epicondyle of the humerus. It will run down the forearm, and it will insert on the pisiform bone of the hamate and the base of the metacarpal bone number 5. Okay, so to palpate the flexor carpi ulnaris, we'll get the client to do abduction and adduction of the wrist, and we will feel the flexicarpi ulnaris, and I'll follow it to the medial epicondyle of the humerus. And to recap the flexor muscle group, we have the pronator teres. Okay, pronator teres, medial supracondylar ridge of the humerus and coronoid process of ulna is the origin, inserting to the lateral surface of the radius. And then we have the flexor carpi radialis from the medial epicondyle of the humerus, inserting to the bases of metacarpal bones 2 and 3. And then we have the palmaris longus, medial epicondyle of the humerus, inserting to the palmar aponeurosis. And we have the flexor carpi ulnaris from the medial epicondyle of the humerus, inserting past the wrist, inserting to the pisiform, hamate bone, and the base of the fifth metacarpal bone. That's all. Thank you.